The Roland JD-08. This is a sound module that I've owned now for just about exactly 1 year. So I'm giving you this review from the perspective of someone who's actually used it in the studio for a little while now. And I want to tell you right off the bat that I do like this sound module. I'm very pleased with it. I think that it's a very good value for the amount of money that you would normally have to pay for it. If you looked at some other YouTube videos, then you already know that there are some quirks with the JD-08, so I am going to talk about those quirks today. A lot of the YouTube videos out there that I've seen are kind of more on the negative side. This is not one of those videos, because what you have to think about with the JD-08, first of all, is what is the alternative? So you've got the software version in Roland Cloud Ultimate, but maybe you're not the kind of person who always wants to work in a DAW. Maybe you want to do like live gigs. Maybe you want to just work DAW-less, because you enjoy working with hardware. An alternative would be to actually buy a real JD-800, which are quite expensive on the used market. And a lot of them suffer from what they call the red glue issue because they are old after a while. They came out in the early 1990s. And also, whenever you have any kind of gear like that, its reliability is going to be somewhat questionable. Another thing is that maybe you don't have space in your studio for a JD-800. So that's where the JD-08 is, I think, a very good alternative. Does it sound exactly the same? I doubt it. And the reason for that is because the original JD-08 had different types of preamps and transformers in its circuitry that produced a sound output to the speakers that's going to be probably slightly warmer than what you would hear here. But that doesn't mean it's worse or better. It's just going to be a slightly different tone. When I compare the tone of the JD-08 to the JD-800 that I have in Roland Cloud, the sounds are pretty much identical to me, to my ears, okay? So again, I don't want to say that one is better than the other, but they are different. Now, if you compare this, the JD-800 or the JD-08 or the software to the JD-990, which I would consider the JD-08's sort of uncle, the JD-990 sounds quite different, but I'm not going to get into that today. We'll save that for another video. So one of the things that people may complain about with the JD-08 is programming it with these really, really tiny little faders and buttons. And to some extent, I would agree with them, but again, you have to make compromises when you're getting something that's inexpensive and small. You can't expect everything to be exactly the way you want it to be. You can get around it somewhat by using these sliders up here, up in the palette. So initially, when I first saw JD-800 and saw this, I thought that those were volume controls for the individual sounds, because you get 4 sounds that you can have in a single patch, 4 layers basically. And that's not how this works. And just in case you don't know, for example, let's find this patch here has 3 different sounds as indicated by those lights. And we're going to touch the level control. First of all, I'm going to put it in edit mode, and I'm going to make sure all 3 of those are flashing. That means that it's in a mode right now where I could edit all 3 of those tones, and I'm going to change the level. Okay, by changing the level here, it has transferred that to here. So now those are in fact volume controls. So I turn them all the way down, and you don't hear them. And now we're going to gradually turn them up. That functionality transfers to any other control that you touch. So right now I'm going to touch filter cutoff frequency. Now those 4 controls will change the filter cutoff frequency for all 4 voices if you want them to. Oops. Okay, that's the resonance. We'll turn that down. So that can help in editing. But the way that I recommend you edit a patch is one voice at a time. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of demonstrate that here just a little bit. So we're gonna go to a blank patch. I'm pushing down to get to bank C. I know that C is fresh patches that are not presets. I'm gonna go ahead and hit 1, 5. We have a blank preset. You see that only one voice is on, and I have that voice now. It's flashing, so that means that tone is in edit mode. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tweak that tone. First, I'm going to change the waveform. Okay, I like that one. I'm going to change the pitch down to -24. Let's go -12. Now I'm going to change the time variant amplifier, which just is the envelope, the amplifier envelope. We're going to increase the attack. So you can see that it takes a little bit longer for the voice to come on. Make sure sustain is all the way up. And we're going to add a little bit of decay. So it continues to ring out after I let go of the key. Now I'm going to turn that voice off and turn on the second voice. You can see it's back to a basic oscillator again. Make it flash, so it's in edit mode. Make sure that only that one voice is flashing, because that's the only one I want to edit. I'm going to change the pitch on that to +12. Change the wave. We're going to add some attack, so that it takes longer for the voice to come up to full sound. Now let's hear them both together. They're both on. We've got too much decay on that first voice. So let's go ahead and lower that decay. Go ahead and add some effects. We just hit the effects button right there. I'm going to add some reverb. I'm going to turn this. And this is one of those quirks, okay? We're going to call this a quirk because the display is so little and they're limited on what they can show in it. Some of the characters look like something you'd see in the cockpit of a Star Wars spacecraft. I mean, it looks like an alien language. So that's one of the quirks. You have to use the owner's manual. You have to go through it to figure out what things mean in some cases. Now with reverb, it's straightforward. You can kind of tell that that says REV. I'm going to turn the reverb on. Now let's add some chorus. Chorus is pretty straightforward. We got the chorus on. Now I want to adjust the levels between those two different tones. Go back to edit, and I've got it. I'm just going to do 1 right now. So remember what I told you, that whenever you move one, then that transfers over to these 4 controls right here. Go back to here. Now we'll balance these levels out. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to save that patch. If you look on the display, if you look on the display and you see that after the number there's a dot, that means that you have edited that patch. I want to go ahead and save that patch to the same exact location that it's in right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the 2 buttons that correspond to the bank and the program number. And I'm going to hold them until that LED at the end goes out. Okay, now the patch is saved. So if I go to a different patch, then go back, it's still there. It's not really all that difficult, okay? Now, there is a lot to memorize though. And like I said, I'm going to try to find you an example of that alien writing. Okay, we're going to go to an effect and we're going to go to reverb. Like this right here, I don't think that very many people would know what that means if they didn't look at the owner's manual, if they just saw that by itself. And that is to tell you whether or not the reverb is on or off. Type, very straightforward. Early reflections, I think that's pretty straightforward. So you see where I'm going. Some of them are going to look really weird and you may not get it when you first look at it. That's where it's really handy to have that owner's manual next to your side until you remember these things. And there are a lot of different parameters. Lots and lots of different things. You can get really deep with this thing. And that's one of the things I really like about it. But after you've played with it, I mean, it really only took me about a day, honestly. It took me about a day to memorize enough things where I barely had to look at the owner's manual after that. One thing that can make editing a lot easier would be an external editor. And one that I've seen online, I can't remember the name of the individual that makes it, and I can't really fully endorse it because I haven't used it myself. But I am leaving a link in the description so that you can watch a YouTube video because the editor looks really awesome. It shows all 4 of the layers of the patch at one time so that you can edit them on the screen without switching back and forth. I'm also leaving a link in the description to a video made by Floyd Steinberg. There's a lot of good tutorial videos out there. If you want a quick, I think it's 16.5-minute video that he made, you know, he goes through the features very quickly, so you may need to rewind that video a few times to really see what he's doing. But that'll really go a long way to get you started on this. But the best way that you're going to learn this is, like a lot of other equipment out there, you can watch all the YouTube videos that you want, but you're really not going to get a good feeling of what it's really like to use it until you get your hands on it. Okay, so you know, maybe you'll have an opportunity if you know somebody or if you see one of these in a local music store, you know, that's what I would recommend you do is try to get your hands on one and use it, and also listen to it, you know, with some headphones. I think you'll be really impressed with the sound. It's really got a lot of character. It really does. And there are people out there who make presets for this thing. Like I want to mention Don Solaris, who I think is probably a genius when it comes to patch making for the JD-800, JD-08, JD-990, and other synthesizers out there. I mean, he you know, even has his patches available in the Roland Ultimate Cloud, or Roland Cloud rather. So whenever I mention this, you know, I'm not sponsored at the time that this video was made by anyone at all, and I don't have any affiliate links at this time that I make any money off of. But I do want to mention that I got this on sale last year at Sweetwater for Black Friday. So with Black Friday coming up shortly after I'm uploading this video, maybe that's a good time for you to get this. And you may be able to find it also on the used market. These things do tend to hold their value pretty well. And after they go out of production, some of them go up in value. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Roland D-05, which is the D50 boutique. And that thing, you know, is quite expensive in the used market right now. So maybe if you get one of these, it might be an investment. I don't know. But that's, you know, definitely not a promise or a guarantee or anything. So this is a sound module that I don't intend to sell anytime soon. As you heard, I've already got a JD-990 and I've got the online version of the JD-08, so I am kind of a fan of that type of sound. Obviously, you know, that type of sound may not be for everybody, but if you like classic 90s style sounds, then this is probably going to be a really good choice for you. It is. And don't let those people who say that it's really difficult to program stop you in any way. There is another thing that I should have mentioned earlier, that if you have really big hands, you know, large fingers, that could make it just a little bit trickier, you know, to move these faders around, because I have relatively small hands, which probably does make it easier for me than some people. Another thing I want to mention is that you saw me going through menus by turning the main dial, but you've also got other shortcuts that come up using the bank buttons. So I'll just go ahead and show that real quick here. We'll go to Effects and Reverb. So you see whenever I touch the button for reverb, there are several different parameters that you can get to with shortcuts here on the banks, and you can memorize those, and that will also get you around quicker. Another question that some people might have is, can you transfer the patches from a JD-800, JD-990, you know, or the software version to this, or from this to those other versions? So I have seen on Reddit links to some type of scripting software in GitHub. There may be other types of software out there that I'm not aware of, but there may be a way that you can do it. What I saw when I looked at that several months ago is it looked kind of tedious, and it looked like something that you'd want to be extremely careful with, because it's basically rewriting the patch in a slightly different format, because it's not a one-for-one swap. You know, they have to do things to change different characteristics of that patch so that it will move into those other devices or into the software or back into the JD-08. So be very cautious is my recommendation if you do try one of those. I believe that software that I mentioned, if that software is still working, that includes the editor, also does, I believe, include a librarian. And that software appears to work in DAWs. One thing that you may encounter whenever you're using any kind of software that's developed by a single person, which I think that software is that you may find over time that it's no longer supported. Okay, I mean, I know that goes for, you know, pretty much any software out there, but in particular when you've got a small team working on it, if it works now on your computer, you may want to sort of suspend that computer in time. Like if you're getting ready to get a new computer, keep that computer the way it is and don't do any updates to it. I know quite a few people who use legacy software do that. Like I have a Windows 10 32-bit computer that I keep because I can run a lot of older software on it. So that might be another recommendation. What I did see is that software, if it's still available, is very inexpensive. I believe last time I looked it was like $8, 8 American dollars. So that seems like a bargain. In fact, I'll probably try it out, and then if I do, maybe I'll make a video on that. All right, if you have any questions about the JD-08 or anything else that you see in my studio, then yeah, just go ahead and ask me in the comments and I'll do my very best to answer them. Maybe you have used the JD-08 in your studio and you've got certain experiences with it that you'd like to share. You know, I'd like to hear about that as well. All right, so thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.